Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Pete Wilkinson, the Managing Director of Esri UK, and it's my absolute pleasure once again to welcome you to our annual conference. This event is genuinely one of the highlights of my year. It's great to already have seen lots of familiar faces, but there's also lots of you here today attending for the first time, and I look forward to meeting you too. This is actually our biggest ever event. There's 2,500 people here in the venue this morning, and there's another well over 1,000 people joining us on the live stream. So whether you've come back and been here before, or whether this is your first time, a really warm welcome to you all. Now, one of the great things about this conference is the diverse mix of organizations, roles, and experiences represented here today. You come from a huge range of different industries and sectors. Some of you will have been using GIS for probably more years than you care to remember, myself included. Others of you may be studying at school, at university, or at the early stages of your career. Some of you may not actually yet know what GIS is. But for me, there's some common reasons why I think we're all here today. It's about making new connections, meeting new people. It's about growing our GIS skills and knowledge. It's about telling people what we do and inspiring them to think about something as well. And ultimately, I hope all of you will leave here today with a really good understanding about how GIS can help you on the next stage of your journey. So with that in mind, I actually want to start a conversation now. In a moment, we're going to bring up the lights, and I'd like you just to turn around and introduce yourself to somebody new, somebody you've not met before, tell them a little bit about what you're doing with GIS, and learn something about what they're doing too. So please go ahead. Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody. That's really good to hear. It feels like there's been lots of good conversations. Well, it certainly sounded like it. Please continue them throughout the day. That's what it's all about today. Meet some new people, learn about what they do. So please keep those going. So the theme of our conference this year is creating the world you want to see. And I hope throughout today you'll see that many of you in the room are already doing exactly that. You're using GIS to manage pollution, to improve biodiversity, to develop sustainable supply chains, or generate and distribute cleaner energy. You're helping businesses to become more efficient, more secure, more customer-focused, more ethical and diverse. You're using maps and dashboards to engage more closely with customers, with citizens, with policymakers. You're building platforms that support collaboration and data sharing. You're using 3D modeling tools to plan smarter cities or run smart infrastructure. You're tackling inequality and supporting disadvantaged communities. Or you're perhaps educating the next generation of GIS experts. So all fantastic achievements, and I could go on. But for me, the one thing that underpins everything I've just described is a core understanding of GIS and geography. We understand that location and GIS give us a framework and the tools to understand where things are, how they relate. We can perform spatial analysis to gain insight. We can engage through maps with decision makers and policy makers. And I think our skills and knowledge give us a really unique opportunity to tackle some of the most significant and urgent challenges we face on the planet. So please, today, think about that, but more importantly, think about the world we want to see. Now, a key part of our mission is to make our system, ArcGIS, more accessible and easy to use. We want to break down the barriers that prevent people from accessing GIS, to allow more people to make a difference. So later this morning, we'll talk more about the ways we're going about that. But we're making good progress, and I hope you'll all be pleased to know you are part of a growing global community of GIS users. ArcGIS is currently used by over 650,000 organizations around the world. So that's millions of users, and that number is increasing all the time. So GIS is making a meaningful difference in lots and lots of different places. And the breadth of customers and industries using GIS is quite staggering. So with that in mind, I just want to very quickly run through some of examples of some of the recent trends, use cases, workflows that we're seeing in the UK, where GIS is helping to create a world we want to see. So the first example here is from the gas distribution industry, where Cadent are deploying a series of apps built on ArcGIS Online. The application you can see here is being used to coordinate more targeted repairs, and that's helping to improve safety and reduce methane emissions from underground pipelines. And this is just one of many apps, all configured by the GIS team using the out-of-the-box capabilities of ArcGIS Online. And Cadent will be talking more later today, so you can listen to that presentation if you want to know more. Here we've got Transport for Scotland, where GIS is being used for smart infrastructure management. ArcGIS Velocity is monitoring their national road network, providing real-time information about traffic flow and gritter locations. That insight helps both Transport Scotland and members of the public understand more about the latest incidents on the road and ultimately create a world with fewer traffic delays and safer journeys. This solution also demonstrates the power of a SaaS-based product that can scale on the days that snow is forecast and suddenly lots and lots of people want to visit their site to understand the latest road conditions. The next example highlights a significant trend we've seen in recent years, where people are using GIS now to manage indoor space. Airedale NHS Trusts have recently replaced a paper-based solution with an ArcGIS mobile app running on an iPad. And they're using this tool to manage inspections and remediation work associated with rack concrete. And I'm sure you've probably seen on the news the problems that that is causing around the safety and viability of buildings. But using indoor GIS and a proactive approach, the Airedale NHS Trust are ensuring the hospital remains safe and operational. And from managing the old to building the new, GIS has been widely adopted in the construction industry. And this example is Tideway, who've created a GIS-based digital twin of the construction of London's new super sewer. So GIS has been fundamental to this project from the start, delivering a range of applications to support planning the route, community and stakeholder engagement, managing health and safety, and it even allowed members of the public to see the real-time latest location of the tunnel boring machines. The next two examples are open data portals, where GIS is helping people access data and information to support research, analysis, and collaboration. The first portal is Stream, which is a cross-industry initiative involving the majority of water companies in the UK. So built with ArcGIS Hub, the portal shares geospatial data from multiple organizations, allowing new types of mapping and analysis and greater insight into the challenges facing the industry. And a similar example from the University of Manchester, who've been working with the Natural Environment Research Council, or NERC, and other partners to consolidate over 40 petabytes of environmental, social, economic, and health data. And these are both great examples of how bringing together data, sharing data between organizations can actually give greater insight and drive positive change. And finally, I'd like to talk about how GIS is being used very directly to make a difference. There are more than 12,000 charities, foundations, and not-for-profit organizations around the world supported by Esri's non-profit program. Through this program, they have access to GIS, which is being used to, frankly, amazing work in some of the most challenging conditions and communities across the globe. One charity is the Mines Advisory Group, a UK-based non-governmental organization who are using GIS to support their field teams operating in some of the most troubled parts of the planet. They're working to locate and neutralize landmines, cluster munitions, and unexploded bombs. And I think it has to be one of the best examples of people driving a positive change for good. And this project is also having a positive impact. This is the Department for Education's National Education Nature Park. So this program is led by the Natural History Museum with support from Esri UK and the Royal Horticultural Society. And this is enabling school pupils around the UK to capture and analyse biodiversity within their school grounds. So this is not only developing GIS skills at a young age, it's also encouraging young people to engage with their surroundings and learn more about biodiversity. It's also building a fantastic new data set which can be used to support data science and further research. And again, the people involved in this project will be speaking in our closing plenary later, so please stick around to see that. So that was a real whistle-stop tour through some of the examples of people and organizations making a difference with GIS. But right now, we're going to hear from one organization that is, I think, fundamental in creating a world we want to see. Now, if you look at this picture, you'll spot myself. There's Mark, our CTO, and Hattie, who heads up our not-for-profit program. And we had the pleasure of meeting the National Trust team at one of their amazing sites, Ashridge in Buckinghamshire. Now, if you look really carefully behind us, you might see there's a fallen tree. And that is just one of the ways in which they're using GIS to capture tree data. But they've also recently published their 10-year strategy, and that creates some much more ambitious goals around tackling climate change. about taking action to manage the drop-in or the decline in species, to connect urban and green spaces, and ultimately create a positive visitor experience for everybody. So GIS is right at the heart of that operation. So right now, I'd like to welcome Hugh Davis, Head of Data, and Ian Dawes, GIS Product Manager from the National Trust.
Thanks, Pete. Good morning, everyone. I'm Hugh, this is Ian, and we're absolutely delighted to be here today. We're going to share our journey with GIS over the past 10 years, from just a few desktop licenses to an enterprise-wide platform used by thousands of employees and volunteers and partners to support our strategic vision. So I'm sure that many of you will have heard of the National Trust, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to visit one of our historic properties or maybe enjoyed a day out walking or cycling on our coastal or woodland trails. The charity itself was founded in 1897 with a mission to protect and care for places so that people and nature can thrive. Today we have 5.7 million members, over 50,000 volunteers, and 12,000 employees, all helping us to care for over 250,000 hectares of land, 780 miles of coastline, and 500 historic properties, gardens, and nature reserves for everyone, forever. So I joined the Trust back in 2011, and at that time we had a very small central GIS team with no development capability really. GIS resources in our regions were aligned to local priorities, so mainly delivering a property data management and map production service. At that time, there was little centralized data, no concept of data quality management, and we were unable to easily share information. We had no formal GIS strategy. But it was around that time that the Trust started to shape what would become a groundbreaking new 10-year plan covering 2015 to 2025, with ambitions to restore nature, grow membership, and increase our reach to new audiences. We knew that GIS could make a massive opportunity to enable us to reach these ambitions, but it was clear that we needed to make some significant changes to align our GIS capability with this strategic vision. So we made the decision to adopt Esri's ArcGIS enterprise-wide technology with the aim of reducing the number of desktop licenses, improving data management, and making better use of web-based GIS solutions. And we hired Ian to lead the central GIS data management team and create our GIS strategy.
Thank you, Hugh, and good morning, everyone. There were lots of things I did when I joined National Trust. One of them was to develop our relationship with Esri UK through Hattie, our brilliant account manager, who really helped to provide the support we needed. Having a centralized GIS platform was an absolute game changer for us. We built an improved intranet mapping solution and made it available to all staff. For the first time, we could streamline our data collection processes. And in 2018, we implemented our first mobile GIS app using ArcGIS Collector. But more importantly, GIS had become crucial. The data we needed to evidence progress against our strategy. In just over a year, we had our GIS-based workflows functioning well, with good engagement from our regions. But we were becoming victims of our own success. Our single-server architecture was creaking under the weight of users and services. We needed to find a way to scale without increasing cost. It was clear we needed a change. As we emerged from the shock of lockdown, we used ArcGIS Online to help reopen our properties. Our leadership team was impressed with our speed to develop and scale new web GIS solutions. Based on this success, we started to discuss the option of using ArcGIS Online more extensively. But personally, coming from a database background, I found this a little scary. It was a risk. We would be one of the first large organizations to go down this route. Going AGOL only was a bit of a leap of faith. To de-risk the project, we worked in partnership with Esri's professional services team. Their team of experts helped us to define an ArcGIS Online-only architecture to support our specific workflows. The good news was that we now had the GIS platform we needed. We were able to rapidly scale access to a wider number of employees at a lower cost and support a broad range of projects to help deliver our strategy.
So, casting your mind back, I can't believe it was 9 years ago now that I presented at this conference, I think on this stage, and talked about our aspirations for GIS in supporting our land and nature strategy. So now, Ian and I would like to share an update with you and give some examples of how we've been using GIS to support our 6 focus areas, helping us to achieve our goals. So, climate change continues to be the single biggest threat to the landscapes and historic sites that we care for, and playing our part in tackling climate harm is more important than ever. We're having to make building alterations to cope with flooding and manage the effects of a changing coastline and rising sea levels. Rising temperatures inside our buildings are damaging some of the finest paintings in our care, while pests and diseases pose a greater threat to collections, trees and plants. Furthermore, the Met Office have predicted that wildfires will increase by 14% by 2030, threatening our precious habitats and species, particularly heath and moor. Since I talked about this back in 2015, it's become terrifyingly real.
So, in a brand new initiative launched this year on Marsden Moor in Yorkshire, we are integrating ArcGIS with field-based sensors to help protect our land from these wildfires. All the data captured will be collated in ArcGIS Online and presented in ArcGIS dashboards, providing operational teams with real-time alerts of when risk levels increase so that they can respond more quickly to protect people and places. Our ArcGIS hazard map has shown us that more than 70% of National Trust properties will be at medium or high risk of climate-related hazards by 2060. These hazards range from landslips, wildfires, flooding, excess heat, and wind exposure. In response, we developed the Weather Impact app using ArcGIS field maps. This allows local and regional teams to capture data on the weather events and associated impacts, such as emergency closure of properties. Trends can be communicated and used to provide evidence for future planning decisions. For us, climate change is here and now. We use ArcGIS solutions to monitor impacts, enable us to react, and to plan for the future.
So the State of Nature Report 2023 uses the most comprehensive science and monitoring data to sadly show that the UK is one of the most nature-depleted places on Earth. The National Trust looks after about 1.5% of the land area of England, Wales and Northern Ireland. That's a pretty significant chunk, and a massive 42% of that is designated as nationally important for nature. We knew we needed to play our part in bringing nature back to life. So we set some ambitious targets in our 10-year strategy. One of those targets was to create or restore 25,000 hectares, that's an area about twice the size of Manchester, of wildlife habitats. We also announced that we had established a mind-boggling 20 million trees by 2030.
With this in mind, we started by conducting geospatial analysis in ArcGIS Pro to ascertain where on our land we can make changes that will have the biggest impact to improve wildlife habitats and carbon capture at a landscape scale. We created a user-friendly workflow in our WebGIS for property staff to capture planned habitat actions and record trees planted. In addition, more than 500 property-based staff now use ArcGIS mobile apps to monitor habitat condition and monitor tree safety. With amazing effort from our staff and volunteers using our GIS products, our nature dashboard shows us that we're on target not only to meet, but to exceed our habitat restoration target.
As part of our role to curate historic and beautiful places, we use a process called experience design to develop a long-term plan for the visitor experience that puts people at the heart of our future plans for our places. Experience design helps us think long-term and holistically to identify where investment is required and what changes need to be made to improve the experience for more visitors. For example, Flatford Estate is a picturesque National Trust property nestled in the heart of the Suffolk countryside. It attracts a diverse array of visitors, from dog walkers to history enthusiasts to families seeking tranquility. Despite knowing the types and approximate numbers of visitors, the property lacked crucial insights into their behaviour and movement patterns across the estate. In seeking to enrich the experience of visitors, we identified a number of changes to optimise the layout and facilities.
To do this, our GIS team started by undertaking an in-depth analysis of visitor dynamics at our Flatford estate using ArcGIS Pro. We integrated data from multiple sources, including paths, points of interest, and facilities, and combine this with GPS tracks and feedback from visitors on their experience. We then use spatial analysis to enable us to see more popular routes, choke points, and hotspots. By understanding the dwell times, property managers can now make more informed decisions on where to allocate resources, such as seating areas and rest stops. We then visualized everything through time series animations, making crowd management and event planning decisions easier and more accurate. The impact of this approach is significant. Accurate visitor behavior data has informed investment decisions for infrastructure improvements and enhanced the visitor experience.
So this urban focus area is all about connecting to audiences who are not engaging with the trust right now. This is particularly true for people living in urban areas that are not traditionally close to our properties. In our Urban Places programme, we are partnering with local authorities and community groups and working to support them to develop heritage and green spaces in their neighbourhoods. We aim to establish 20 green corridors by 2030, connecting the urban areas where people live with the beautiful and historic spaces that the National Trust look after. Both the spatial planning and increasingly the collaboration is supported with ArcGIS. We're pulling in a wide range of external data from the Living Atlas, then setting up data sharing agreements and ArcGIS collaboration areas with partner organisations, such as the active travel charity Sustrans, to explore where we can work together to improve walking, wheeling and cycling routes. So far, we've started work on 15 green corridors, connecting cities to green spaces all the way down from Newcastle in the north down to Plymouth in the south.
Growing support for National Trust means encouraging as many people as possible to support us in different ways, not just visiting a National Trust property. It could be buying a coffee or supporting one of our our national campaigns. One of those ways is through our flagship Blossom campaign, which started 3 years ago with the aim of encouraging everyone to share the hope and joy that Blossom brings. Although essentially a marketing campaign, our comms team asked us to support areas of this work. Our GIS team worked with ArcAI, combining artificial intelligence and historical mapping to see, for the first time, how the distribution and extent of orchards and their blossom has changed over the last 100 years. This analysis revealed a dramatic decline of orchards since the start of the 20th century. This story was widely picked up by the media to support our message.
So we're increasingly trying to find ways to involve more people in our work. One way the archaeology team have been demonstrating this is through the Heritage and Archaeology Ranger Teams, or HART. HART is an exciting volunteer initiative set up to improve the Trust's understanding of the condition of our archaeological features. The Peak District team has equipped volunteers with ArcGIS mobile apps, enabling them to collect data on the condition of archaeological features on National Trust land, including barrows, ruins, and ancient quarries. All the data collected is uploaded to a central portal on ArcGIS Hub Premium, which allows volunteers to immediately see the results of their contribution and hopefully have a positive experience volunteering for the Trust.
Wow, so we've presented a wide range of things we've done there, and I hope it shows the breadth of our delivery using ArcGIS. But to recap, we have responded to the challenge of climate change by predicting hazards and collecting evidence to inform, plan, and deliver our response. We've restored nature, tracking progress with ArcGIS apps, maps, and dashboards. We've supported better investment decisions at our properties to improve visitor experience. We've enabled collaboration with partners, connecting people to nature through our green corridors. We've supported non-traditional GIS use cases, such as our Blossom marketing campaign. We've enabled more volunteers to get involved with history through our archaeological monitoring in Survey 123.
So, you've heard a bit about our case studies, and we've talked a bit about this amazing Esri technology that we've got. You'll no doubt hear a bit more about that today as well. But all the work you've seen today has only been successful with the skill and dedication of some brilliant people. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to Ian and every single member of the National Trust GIS team for their amazing work over this period. As Ian's just summarised, we feel like we've achieved a lot over the last 10 years, but as we look forward to 2025 and the start of our new 10-year strategy, I see it as an exciting opportunity to reset ourselves and go again. We plan to go even further to tackle the climate and biodiversity crisis using spatial data and technology to increase our collaboration with government, NGOs, and communities. We want to improve productivity, and we'll be investigating AI and machine learning tools as ways to enable more efficient ways of working. We're going to invest in developing our data science capability and the skills to use the power of data in spatial analysis to better model, predict, and forecast our future. We'll be using ArcGIS to engage, inspire, and tell our stories, enabling us to connect and welcome new audiences. Who knows? Maybe some of you guys. So, to sum up, I firmly believe that the power of geography has enabled us to transform the National Trust and reach our strategic goals. So, as a GIS community, never underestimate the value of your work. You are truly enabling us to create a better world for everyone. Thank you.
Well done, guys. Well done. Thank you. Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, Ian. I hope you all agree, some fantastic examples of GIS in action, not just running their day-to-day operations, but also tackling some of those bigger issues as part of their 10-year strategy. So thank you, guys. And this is one small footnote to that presentation, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing it with the group. But if you do bump into Hugh later, you might like to congratulate him on another really impressive achievement. Last year, he completed his mission, which I think was a lifetime ambition, to visit all 624 properties in the National Trust handbook by bike, cycling over 5,300 miles and spending over 860 hours in the saddle. So again, well done, Hugh, another amazing achievement. Fantastic. So the achievements of the National Trust, and in fact, the work that all of you are doing, is made possible by the ArcGIS system. And here at Esri UK, we're incredibly proud of ArcGIS, not just because of your fantastic work, but also because it continues to evolve and develop, introducing new capabilities for the future. In a moment, I'm going to welcome Mark Wells, Esri UK's Chief Technology Officer, and a team from our technical team to talk to you about some of the recent enhancements. They're going to talk about the continued evolution of ArcGIS Online, the growing importance of artificial intelligence, new support for imagery, 3D, and drones, and importantly, a new approach to our licensing, which is going to simplify and expand access to ArcGIS. So with that, I'll welcome Mark and the team.
Thanks very much, Pete, and good morning, everybody, and let me add my welcome to you today as well. Hosting the technical showcase here at the QE2 is one of the things I look forward to throughout the year, and we've got some fantastic content for you this morning that's powered by ArcGIS 2024. Now, as CTO, one of the things that I obsess about is the future strategy and direction of our technology. And I don't think that you can do that today without considering the question, how does AI apply to the field of GIS? I don't know about you, but I feel like I only need to turn on my phone to be inundated with the news articles, the opinion pieces, and the relentless amount of AI-related spam that seems to appear in my inbox. But frustrating as some of that can be, I do also think it shows we are genuinely living through a time of exciting technical innovation. Indeed, tech visionaries and commentators are seemingly running out of superlatives, describing AI as the biggest technology revolution since the cloud, the internet, the graphical user interface. The wheel? Maybe. But actually, I like to bring some balance here. Behind the headlines, have you noticed some of the other conversations that are going on around AI? The conversations about data privacy and security. And what about intellectual property? Or have you seen how AI reinforces societal bias and stereotypes? You know, amongst the excitement, there are some significant challenges for us to deal with here as well. So how do we do that? How do we understand the role of AI within the realm of GIS when we have all of this exciting potential and amazing opportunity, and yet all of these hurdles? Well, one of the ways that I like to do it is to try and make things real. And today, we have deployed AI within the ArcGIS system in two ways: GeoAI and generative AI. Now, these areas can overlap. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but I think this distinction is helpful for us just as we explore this together. GeoAI, then, is about the application of AI techniques to solve geospatial problems. Now, today, we take approaches from the fields of computer vision and machine learning, for example, to perform activities like object detection and feature extraction, to really supercharge our geospatial analysis. Generative AI, which has come to the fore over the last few years, offers us techniques that generate varied and lifelike content in creative domains like music and poetry, images and video. And these things are often indistinguishable from human-generated outputs. And the future, I think, is where the overlap comes. I fully expect the area of generative AI to fundamentally influence and change how we do GIS and how we do GeoAI. So how's that going? Well, today, we've started to take advantage of generative AI approaches to simplify and expand access to ArcGIS and to help increase productivity through the use of AI assistants. Now, these assistants expose natural language interfaces, which means that we can ask them simple questions. So at Esri, we're taking this whole area of generative AI and thinking about it in two ways. Firstly, can we use these methods to expand access to GIS, to simplify and to remove complexity, and to help more people take advantage of geospatial approaches? Can we help people to ask questions rather than have to drive software? And then secondly, can we leverage these approaches to help the professional communities to do more, to increase productivity, to really start to orchestrate and coordinate outputs, to work smarter, rather than having to hand crank all of that work directly? And when we stand back from this, what we're really trying to do is simplify access to GIS, make it easier to use, and also expand productivity, help you to do more. And these two concepts, these are really important focus areas for us. And actually, AI is not the only approach that we're taking to achieve these things. As Pete mentioned, we're making some changes next month to our named user licensing model for exactly the same reasons, to expand what you have access to and to simplify how you get that access. And I really want to say thank you to you as a community for your input and feedback here, because you've really helped to shape what we've come up with. As I work with organizations on a day-to-day basis, one of the most common pieces of feedback that I hear is that understanding the licensing of ArcGIS can be complex, it can be difficult. And actually at Esri, we have over 150 different products and solutions that we need to license. And on top of that, we're innovating all the time. And we want to get that innovation to you in ways that are easy to understand. And so here's what we're going to do. From next month, we're going to simplify our named user licensing model into the 6 roles that you see on the screen in front of you. And then we're going to expand your access to GIS within each of these roles. And what that means is we're going to wrap in more applications, more capabilities, more access into each level. I like to think of it that we are moving away from licensing products, but instead we're enabling individuals. And if you are an individual with access to one of these roles, then you have access to a set of capabilities which are delivered through a group of applications which you also now have. And one of our other aims here is to really reduce the number of extensions, add-ons, product solutions that are licensed outside of this model. So I asked the question, what would it look like if we took one of these new creator users and a bunch of GeoAI tools, and we gave that to somebody with an open brief? Well, here to answer that question, I'm delighted to welcome to the stage one of our professional services consultants, Balkis. Over to you.
Thank you, Mark. As all of you know, the theme of this year's conference is creating a world we want to see. But before we look towards the future, let us first appreciate our past and how far we have come with GIS. Now, on the screen here is a section of the half-inch scale maps created by John Bartholomew and Company. By 1905, they were the first to publish a complete map of Great Britain at this scale. Now, these maps were considered innovative then, not only because of their coverage, but also because of their cartography. They were the first to use a change of color bands to represent different topographies. With shades of greens to represent lower elevations, and moving on to darker browns for higher levels, it is a symbology choice we still use today. Now, what's also really interesting about these maps is that a large portion of their topographic data were actually surveyed by the Cyclist Touring Club. At the time, they consisted of over 60,000 cyclists, and these volunteers surveyed the landscape and provided up-to-date information of the terrain. As you can see, we used to require a large number of resources to be able to map our world at just a half-inch scale. John Bartholomew and Company took over 10 years to complete their first revisions of these maps. Today, we can do all of this within a fraction of the time. With the increasing advancements of satellite imagery, we are now able to map parts of our world which used to be inaccessible to us, and display this all in 3D. Let us now explore how today's technology can help us efficiently map out our landscape and uncover our collective history. Now, our first location is of Northern Ireland, and just by looking at the satellite imagery here, it's difficult for us to see any key identifying features in the landscape. Instead, we will be looking at a derived product of imagery, which is called a hillshade. Now, immediately we begin to see these elongated hills in the landscape. And these hills are called drumlins and were created by the flow of glaciers over the terrain. Now, if we begin to map out the orientation of these drumlins, we can start to picture the flow of glaciers over 10,000 years ago. Now, to get such results in the past, we would have had to dedicate a lot of time in the field, much like Bartholomew and Company. Today, all of this data is available to you through ArcGIS Living Atlas, allowing you to uncover our natural history with just a few clicks. Now, the use of imagery can help us with human history as well. Our next location is just outside of the town of Ensham in Oxfordshire. Now, the view on the screen here is actually some high-resolution satellite imagery sourced by our partners at Blue Sky. And it shows us some crop marks in fields. These crop marks are actually foundations of prehistoric settlements and burial sites and have been estimated to be as old as 4,000 BC. These crop marks were hidden to us until dry conditions revealed the underlying foundations. Now, the use of imagery can help us identify such important archaeological sites and help us in the decision-making to preserve our rich history. Now that we have uncovered the buildings of our past, let us now look towards the future. As you all know, we are quickly depleting our Earth's natural resources. So it's crucial for us to find viable sources of renewable energy. We will now be investigating the solar potential for annual electricity production of Ensham Town. Here are some results of an analysis that I had carried out earlier, with the lighter buildings having a higher potential for annual electricity production. I have also identified the locations of existing solar panels. And you can see that some suitable buildings do not currently have any panels installed. Now, the majority of my results have actually been derived from imagery, and now I will be switching to ArcGIS Pro to show you how I got these results. Okay, we are now in Pro, and as you can see, I have already preloaded my blue sky imagery of Ensham Town at a 12.5 centimeter resolution. Now, my first task was to identify the locations of solar panels within my image. Now, historically, I would have had to zoom in on every single rooftop and pan around to search for a solar panel. And once I had found one, I would then have to digitize this by hand. However, with the increasing accessibility of GeoAI, I can use the pre-trained deep learning tools available on ArcGIS Living Atlas to help me with my task. Anyone can simply go into the catalog pane, into the portal section, and search the Living Atlas for these models. And together with the Detect Objects Using Deep Learning tool, you can see that the model has successfully identified the solar panels in my image. Now, I'm sure all of you can appreciate that this is a massive leap forward in productivity, allowing me to focus on the GIS and the analysis instead of the repetitive task of digitization. Now that I have my solar panel locations, I want to understand the solar potential of Ensham as a whole. To do this, I will be needing a high-resolution digital surface model, which is also known as a DSM. Again, this DSM has been sourced by our partners at Blue Sky, and using it, I was able to calculate the slope and the aspect of my terrain, all at a 25 centimeter resolution. Now, I would just like to take a moment to appreciate how far we have come with GIS. We went from carrying out large surveys to be able to map our world at a half-inch scale. Today, we are not only capturing high-resolution images of our Earth, but moving on to creating derived products of terrain analysis, all within minutes. And in future, our satellite technology will get even better, allowing us to map our world like never before. Let's continue on with my analysis. So now I want to understand how much solar radiation each building receives annually. To do this, I will be needing the raster solar radiation toolbox. And this is available through the spatial analysis toolbox. As you can see, I have my DSM, my slope, and aspect rasters as my inputs. I have also set a time frame of a year as I want to understand the annual electricity production. Now remember to set an input analysis mask to your relevant cells to save computing power. In my case, I used building footprints. Now after running this tool, you can see my results here. With the red cells receiving a higher amount of solar radiation per year, while the blue cells receive the least. Now, to make accurate recommendations for solar panels, I will now be removing cells with too steep of a slope and cells that receive a low amount of solar radiation. Those of you with north-facing gardens will also know that these areas don't receive much sunlight. So I will now be removing north-facing cells as well. Now, aggregating these results together with my building footprints, I am then able to convert solar radiation to annual electricity production in megawatt hours. And you can see with the lighter buildings having a higher potential for annual electricity production. Now, I could leave my results as 2D, but you might remember earlier that I had shown you a 3D model of Ensham. To do this, I simply extruded my building footprints to their true heights, and then added my locations of existing solar panels, which I had found out using GeoAI earlier, again to provide further context to my results. Now, thanks to ArcGIS Image to ArcGIS Online, I was able to publish all of my imagery and raster datasets to ArcGIS Online alongside my 3D scene, allowing my colleagues across my organization to access my data. Now, in the last 10 minutes or so, we have briefly talked about the history and the future of mapping. I myself have a newfound appreciation of how far we have come with GIS, and I hope I've given you some idea of how these technologies can help you create the world you want to see. Thank you, and back to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Balkis. Fantastic work there. And did you notice how Balkis was using a variety of different applications and tools to achieve her work? You know, I think this reflects how the nature of professional GIS is changing. No longer is it constrained to one monolithic application, but it's about having access to the right tools and the right apps to be able to perform the task in hand. And actually, that's why role-based user access is so important. It's that named user that's allowing Balkis to move seamlessly between those applications. She was using ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Pro Basic, and then we saw her using ArcGIS Image for ArcGIS Online. All of those applications come as part of the creator named user from next month. Okay, so if if capabilities are accessed through those user types, then what are some of those capabilities? Let's take some time and look through them. I think it all starts with the ArcGIS Living Atlas of the world. Now, when I joined Esri around 19 years ago, one of the first jobs and tasks that I had required me to open ArcMap. And I remember doing this for the first time. I wonder if you have this experience as well. I opened this amazing powerhouse application with all these buttons and toolbars and all of this capability, but I couldn't get it to do anything. And it slowly dawned on me that this state-of-the-art app didn't come with any data. Well, what an extremely different situation we have today with the ArcGIS Living Atlas. It's the world's largest collection of geospatial content that we at Esri actively curate for your use. And it comes with all of the types of data you can see on the screen there. Maps and demographic information, near real-time content, pre-trained machine learning models like we saw Balkis using a few moments ago, and so much more. And it's not just content from us at Esri, but it's also authoritative data from our partners and from the organizations that you represent, like the National Trust, who we heard from earlier. And then, as users, we take this data and we build it into beautiful and compelling maps. I like to think of mapping as the language of geography. It's how we communicate spatial information to one another. And when we communicate with one another, we tell stories, don't we? And ArcGIS has got a powerful set of tools to help us to articulate those stories in creative ways. And as we do that, we map objects and locations and where things are, and we start to look at the patterns and the interactions of those objects. And that takes us into the area of spatial analysis, which is about extracting knowledge and uncovering patterns through geography. In fact, this is what data scientists do. They mine data to extract insight, and ArcGIS is a platform that spatially enables data science. We also have tools to address the spatial analysis of big data. And using ArcGIS Geoanalytics Engine, we can take the power of spatial analysis and point that at our existing Spark data stores, which means we don't need to load it into ArcGIS. And we could do all of this work in 2D and in 3D, because ArcGIS supports 3D across the whole system, and we've just seen some of that in action. And it's for analysis as well as for visualization, and it supports additional workflows like 3D editing and immersive experiences through the use of game engines, bringing to life real geographies with their animation and their physics engines. ArcGIS is also a comprehensive imagery and remote sensing system. Now, this is an area that we've just seen exploding over the last few years, with access to remote sensing techniques becoming so much more accessible. And that's generating information products that help us to represent our environment, to monitor it, and to detect and track change. Now, I think it's the maturity of these last couple of areas, the maturity of 3D and of imagery and remote sensing, that has really led to this new area of reality mapping. And in response, we have built ArcGIS Reality at Esri to enable organizations to generate authoritative content that is fueling the GIS and the digital twin communities. We really want to help support map and data production at scale. Real-time visualization and analytics, well, this is about the tracking, monitoring, and alerting of constantly changing data. And we live in a world where sensor networks and IoT devices are just prevalent, aren't they? And all of this area is really enabling this idea of living digital twins, which are being operationalized in some sectors, for example, transport. Well, data management is about having the ability to model the attributes, the relationships, and the behaviors of data within very specific contexts. Now, at Esri, we have built services-based modern industry models to allow you to do this. That allows you to model data in areas like utilities, in transportation, hydrology, and many, many others. And you can imagine if we can accurately model that data in those individual areas, the power when we start to bring that together to hydrate and enrich digital twins, really helping to model the natural and the built environments of our world together. And to support this, over the last year, we've released data pipelines, which helps to communicate between systems. It allows you to ingest and process data. Field operations is about having enterprise-grade data collection, field mobility, and situational awareness. And we have a set of options in this space. ArcGIS Field Maps is our comprehensive solution that's really designed to support a mobile workforce at scale. We also have Survey 123 for those forms-based approaches, and Quick Capture for capturing those sets of rapid observations. Now, all of these workflows are very mature and primarily enabled through the mobile worker user type. So we've covered quite a lot of ground there looking at the capabilities in ArcGIS. And to bring them to life now, I'd like to welcome to the stage one of our technical pre-sales consultants, Emma. Over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Today, I want to explore the idea of community mapping and really enhancing the lives of everyone in our little study area of Ensham. I'm going to show you how we can do this using smart web editing and generative AI. Let's imagine I'm an urban planner. And I've been tasked with providing this new area of the community with some additional amenities. A space, perhaps, for schools for providing educational classes, action groups for holding public forums, or healthcare organizations for providing clinics. As part of my design, I might want to include parking, outdoor areas to explore, some shared working spaces, an indoor market, anything to bring people together. And I want to discover the existing land use, design features, and monitor metrics like distance and cost, but I don't want to have to do it all manually. So I'm going to use Suite, a smart web editing application that has the ability to set up attribute and topological rules to enable real-time data validation at the point of data capture. I can use it in ArcGIS Online, and it's customized using Arcade, the flexible expression language found throughout the ArcGIS system. Suite has so many cool features that I could show you today, but I'm going to focus on its user-friendly interface, rule-based data capture, and leveraging smart calculations. So let's get started. Here I am in Suite. I'm in a browser, and I've got a panel here straight away, which is going to guide me through my workflow. And only the first tool is available to me right now. The others are grayed out until parameters are met. So first, I want to discover that existing land use. And I'll use this tool, which is going to turn on the freehand draw mode. So I'll draw my study area. And when I complete that feature, a high-level baseline habitat is returned. Now, let's just take a moment to explain what happened here, because that was quite fast, and we're now looking at quite a lot. So in my web map, I've got Ordnance Survey Master Map. And when I drew my study area, Suite took a clip of that master map and pasted it into my own feature layer that I'm using for designing. So I now have a copy, symbolized by description from the master map, that I can edit without touching the original. So if we come back to my workflow, I can now go ahead and check that land use distribution using this configured chart, which is dynamically reading from my layer and therefore responding as changes are made. So I can now keep track of the composition of my site as I work. I can also check the solar potential. So this is telling me the total potential electricity generation for the site I've drawn. So I can see here the area I've drawn could be generating 430 megawatt hours annually from solar panels. And this is, again, looking at a layer that I've not got turned on right now because I don't want it cluttering my map, but I do want a summary of the information within it. And in this example, we are using the output solar potential layer that Wilkinson created earlier. Now I'm going to focus my design on this field here to show you some of the powerful features of Suite that are going to help me capture my ideas. So the first thing I'm going to draw is, very approximately for now, a building for some of those indoor activities. And when I complete that, I'm prompted that I have to fill in the land use type. So I'll choose Community Center. And when I do that, you see I get a new field appear here, which is telling me how many solar panels would fit on the feature that I've drawn. Now this works because of underlying understanding that Suite has around visibility and calculations. So this field is only appearing because I've chosen Community Center, and it's running the calculation based on the area of the feature I've drawn. Cost is being calculated for me in a similar way. So if I reshape that feature, you'll see those numbers change because Suite is doing those calculations on the fly. Let's draw something else. Let's draw some parking. I'm going to draw some parking in the corner here. I've deliberately gone outside of my study area. So I'll choose parking. Now keep an eye on that area that I've gone outside of there. It disappears. And that is because of the spatial intelligence around topology rules that are inherent in Suite. It knows that I shouldn't be designing outside of my study area, so it's just removed it for me. I've not had to think about it. And if we come back to the properties, we can see in the same way that we had solar panel count, we can now see the number of parking spaces that would give us. And on reflection, I suppose, that area is not very accessible for parking, so I think I'm just going to change that to wildflowers. It's much nicer as well. And you can see that that field disappears because it's no longer relevant to us. And the cost changed as well. So I'll just do it again so you can see. Parking, not parking. Something else you might have spotted in the map here is this. This is map feedback. And this is giving me dynamic information about my site. It's telling me things like the distance to the nearest school for those educational classes, to the nearest bus stop for sustainable access. And this is highly configurable. It can be the size, color, shape that you want. And it can contain as much or as little information as you want as well. What kind of metrics would you like to track if you were doing this sort of work? Now, we could carry on and design this whole site all day, but we don't have time for that. So I'm just going to use one more tool, the swipe tool. The swipe tool allows us to easily view layers underneath the one that we're looking at. So if I swipe, you'll see a neat version of my design that I made earlier, just so you can get an idea of the level of detail that could be achieved. Now today, I've used Suite to start planning a new community center design. But we see Suite used for a huge range of industries and workflows. We see it used for land parcel planning, habitat management, agriculture, network editing. The list goes on. And the workflow I've shown here today as well, grabbing relevant data sets, choosing a site, designing elements, that's all quite straightforward for me as a single person to complete. But actually, my team and I need to repeat this process for the next proposal, be that in Ensham or elsewhere. And with ArcGIS, we can make workflows repeatable and accessible. So I want to show you now how we might kick off the decision to start designing a new community space. I'm going to create a form using Survey 123 for my field and office staff to use to submit ideas for new proposals. So here I am in Survey 123. I'm building a new form. I've got my form building tools here, which I can start to drag in, such as text and multiple choice. So I'm now going to have to think of my questions. I'm going to think of what type they should be, think of my multiple choice options, probably change my mind quite a lot. So instead of all of that, I'm going to use the Survey123 Assistant currently in beta. Using really simple language prompts, this is going to create the form for me so that I don't have to do any manual configuration of questions. So I'm asking the assistant to create me a survey that allows users to draw that area for their proposed development, answer questions like, what's the existing land type? What's the suggestion? And upload a photo. So you can see it going there. Let's have a look at what it's doing. It has, yes, good. From my simple language there, it's understood what I'm trying to do. It's created the questions. It's suggested the right type of question. And it's given me some multiple choice options as well. So for land type here, question 3, I'm thinking that's only sort of 4 quite broad categories. So I'm just going to reply to it and say, add more options to question 3. Now, I'm not getting it to rewrite the whole thing. I'm just asking it to tweak one of the questions. And hopefully what we'll see is a longer list of those multiple choice options for existing land type. So we can see there, it's done that. I've not had to think about those. It's just thought of those for me. So if I'm happy with this, which, I mean, I guess I could make some more changes, but for now, I'm happy with this, I can hit generate and get it to build that form. Now, that does take a couple of minutes. So here is one that I made earlier. And all I've done is I've changed the background color. So if we think back to a minute or so ago, I had a blank form, and I was starting to drag in my question types. But now, with the help of AI, I've created this live with you, and you can go away and do exactly the same. So AI techniques like this are really helping to simplify these tasks and make them more accessible to more people, making us as GIS analysts much more productive. So I can go ahead and fill in this form. I'm going to choose my site over here. It's a bit wonky, but there we are. We'll just say solar panels for now. And I'll submit that form. Now that I've submitted that, I need to wait for another member of the team to pick that up. So for now, back to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Emma. I think what really comes across there is some of the efficiency savings that you really can get by taking some of those approaches that Emma showed us. And a lot of the work that Emma was doing there was in Suite for ArcGIS, and that's an example of an application that we've built to make use of the new contributor user type, which is a user type that's really been designed to support editing workflows, but also wider contribution, for example, survey submissions. Okay, let's move on and look at a couple of newer capabilities in ArcGIS. Link analysis is about integrating knowledge graph capabilities with ArcGIS, and this gives us access to graph analytics, which helps us to understand how entities are connected and explore the relationships between them. This is all powered by ArcGIS Knowledge, and for the first time, we're including access to ArcGIS Knowledge for creator users and above from next month. And we've been working closely with Microsoft to spatially enable their new enterprise analytics platform, Microsoft Fabric. This is a single system that allows you to ingest, store, process, and analyze data. Now, we've been working together to integrate ArcGIS to allow Fabric users to take advantage of highly scalable big data, spatial analytics, and spatial data science tools natively within that environment. And the reason that I think that is really exciting is because it's once again about expanding access to geospatial capabilities and helping to allow more people to take advantage of those approaches. Microsoft have around 1 billion users globally of their ecosystem. That's about 1 in every 8 people in the world. And we have an opportunity to spatially enable that community and also along the way to help with spatial awareness and spatial literacy. So that brings us to the end of the capabilities in the ArcGIS system. And at Esri, what we do is we build capabilities into applications that are specifically designed to support specific types of work. And then we bring those applications all together in the ArcGIS system, which is comprised of 4 pillars. The first one is a desktop software pillar, where we have ArcGIS Pro and other desktop tools, Pro is our professional desktop GIS and data science workstation. It's been specifically designed to work with local data, to connect in to ArcGIS Enterprise and ArcGIS Online, and to work with OGC services. Secondly, we have our server software pillar, where we have ArcGIS Enterprise, GIS infrastructure for your organization. You can deploy Enterprise on premises or in the cloud, and it comes with all of the capabilities that we've talked about today. Now, we're seeing increasing interest in Enterprise on Kubernetes, which is a cloud-native deployment option, which is highly scalable, it's easy to deploy and manage, and comes with lots of strong DevOps integration. It also comes with a different commercial model that is based on users rather than on cores to help with that scaling agility. Thirdly, we have our SaaS pillar, where we have ArcGIS Online, the world's largest mapping and data sharing ecosystem. Today, many capabilities are available as SaaS in a highly scalable way. And we're continuing to do more of this because it helps to simplify access to GIS, and it helps broader audiences to engage with geospatial approaches. You know, the browser is a really important leveler for doing some of that. And a good example of that is what we saw Balkis doing in ArcGIS Image for ArcGIS Online. That's one of the applications that we are now going to make available to creator users and above from next month. And then finally, our fourth pillar, ArcGIS Platform. This really takes everything that we've talked about today, and it addresses the needs of developers by providing access to ArcGIS via an API. And that comes with a simple and clean consumption-based business model as well. And then at the heart of the ArcGIS system, we have the portal. The portal's really what brings the four pillars together, and it helps ArcGIS operate as a single system. It provides some capabilities of its own, like identity and security. It helps us to do content management. It's responsible for sharing and collaboration. It really is sort of the heart of the ArcGIS system. Now, there's a portal in ArcGIS Online, and there's a portal in Enterprise. You can actually connect them together with distributed collaboration and start to build out distributed geospatial infrastructure. You can connect to portals with Pro, and you can build apps for them with ArcGIS Platform. So, there we have it, the ArcGIS system. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Looks good on a slide. But what does it feel like in the real world? How do you take the deep technical work of GIS analysts and combine that with the real-time nature of field work? How do we use unfolding events to prioritize and coordinate activity and make sure that our work gets done in a structured and ordered manner across a disparate workforce? Well, I'm glad you asked, by the way. To tell us more about that, I'd like to welcome one of our enterprise services consultants to the stage. Aled, he is going to introduce us to some tools that do just that. Aled.
Thanks, Mark. So, we've seen two great workflows this morning from Emma and Balkis, and now I'm ready to get the whole organization involved. Some of the challenges I'll meet implementing a large project like this one are around the consistency of the approach, monitoring progress, and maintaining an audit trail of the work that we do. I'm here to show you how Workflow Manager can help us overcome these challenges. We saw earlier how Emma used Survey 123 Smart Assistant to easily create a new survey for our field operatives. But when the survey submissions scale from just one site to many, from individual to whole workforce, and even between organizations, how can we design, manage, and work through this increased workload whilst remaining efficient? Well, I'm going to tackle this problem today head-on with ArcGIS Workflow Manager. So here I am in ArcGIS Online, and I'm going to open Workflow Manager from the App Selector. Once I'm in, I'm able to see the workflow items and projects that I've created. And here, I've created one for a community development project in preparation to scale. This is the ArcGIS Workflow Manager interface. Since I'm an admin of this project, I'm able to see all three tabs at the top: Design, Manage, and Work. By default, it's thrown me into the Manage tab, where I'm able to see my currently assigned jobs on a map, along with some metrics on our project. I'll come back to this tab later to show you more, once I've done some work to show for it. Swapping to the Work tab at the top now, I'm going to start going through these jobs. So each row you see in this table is an active job that's been submitted from Emma's Survey 123 form earlier. It's starting to pile up, but it's good news that they all fit on one page, honestly. So each job has a number of steps to complete, and each step will take us through our business requirement in a repeatable, productive way. To start a step, I'll click the play button on the right. So as you'll see, each step of this workflow has been configured to our community development project, which will guide me through the necessary steps, shown by Balkis and Emma earlier, to contribute to our wider vision. Now on the next step, I'm being asked to open Suite to carry out the task of our community development proposal shown earlier. I don't have to go to a bookmark or find a web address buried in my emails in my inbox from months ago. Workflow Manager will open it for me. And since it's also an arcade-driven application, like Suite, it can open the application with my study area as my initial extent. In this case, Arcade has allowed me to carry through spatial context and data through this workflow. So I've integrated Emma's workflow here, and I can continue through the Suite task to complete this assessment of the proposed community area, as well as interrogating the land use distribution and designing a few new buildings while I'm here. We're already at the survey site in Suite with only having to press a button in Workflow Manager. Super productive, right? Once I'm happy with my area in Suite and I've interrogated enough of the land use, designed a few buildings, I can progress to the next step in Workflow Manager. Now on the next step, I'm being asked a question about the proposed site and its budget for solar panels. If yes, this job will be sent to the solar analysis team, and if no, the workflow is marked as complete. So I can present options like this in Workflow Manager to steer my job a specific way, depending on the decision making at the time. So I'm going to select yes here to take up a new role in the solar potential analysis team. And on the next step, Workflow Manager will prompt me to download an ArcGIS Pro project that's been tailored to this task. Once I've downloaded it and opened ArcGIS Pro, Workflow Manager has the great ability to launch ArcGIS Pro projects and automatically kick off a specific task. ArcGIS Pro tasks are a great way to guide users through specific workflows and tools within ArcGIS Pro, reducing the amount of training and completely eliminating the where do I find that button or which toolbox from the hundreds do I find that tool in. Tasks have been in ArcGIS Pro since the very early days, and I highly encourage you to check them out. As you can see, I'm being prompted on the right side of the screen to take me through the steps to replicate Balkis's workflow from earlier, allowing me to concentrate on the important decision-making and data validation. Even the geoprocessing tool needed in this instance has been pre-filled for me, again, reducing the amount of training required. To complete this step, I can switch to the Workflow Manager pane and then back to the browser. So now I've completed an assessment of a new area submitted through Survey 123, as well as contributed to the solar potential dataset that we saw earlier. Let's take a step back. I've taken the business workflows that we've seen today, I've brought them together in Workflow Manager so anyone, regardless of experience, can work through these steps exactly as I've designed them, working seamlessly between ArcGIS in the browser and ArcGIS on desktop. I know that I've got more work to do in here, but I'm going to take the opportunity to show you some cool stuff in the Design tab. So over here in the Design tab, on the left, we have a library of workflows that we can add to and build up over time, depending on the workflow in question. This is today's simple workflow, intended to be easy to understand and follow. And these are the steps I've just taken you through. So I'll quickly show you how we can add a step here to end the job based on a user's decision. It's very similar to Model Builder in terms of a wide variety of drag and drop tools. So in what I've shown you today, I'm using 4 of these tools in what I've already shown you, but things like sending an email, sending custom web requests, and opening specific geoprocessing tools are also available. This one in particular, Send a Web Request, can integrate with any of your current system, whether it be on ArcGIS Enterprise on-premise or through our SaaS offering, ArcGIS Online. Being Arcade-enabled too allows me to form this web request however I'd like, depending on the business requirement. One more thing I'd like to show you, and you might be asking yourself, Aled, how did Workflow Manager grab the geometry from your Survey 123 form? Well, here on the first step, I've used this arcade expression to do just that, which then enables me to integrate it into the Open Suite step. And the keen-eyed in the audience would have seen that we can create jobs as a tool on the left, as well as assign them to various teams. So I want you to start thinking of chaining together various workflows. And considering all of the tools available at our disposal, you can quickly start to see those multi-system GIS tasks become easy-to-use steps in Workflow Manager. So that's all great news for the techies in the room, me included. But what if I get promoted to manager? What if I become the captain of the ship, so to speak? And what if the progress is very important to me? How does the Manage tab help me? Well, once a few jobs have been submitted, we can start to see the scale of our initiative. Here, we can see all of my current jobs and the relevant information of each. I can filter to everyone's jobs in the top left, and then browse them in the table below. Once I've found a job of particular interest, I can use the Zoom to feature button to focus on the specific area whilst identifying job progress, job notes, and any attachments that have been submitted via the workflow. I'm also given the ability to comment on the jobs myself, create new work areas, and create holds or blockers and reopen jobs. With all of these additional tools as a manager, you can quickly review the status of existing jobs, workers, and the progress of our overall vision. All of this in one interface means I can design, deploy, and manage multiple jobs even as I scale the organization's workload. As the manager, I now feel comfortable with the scale of this project. So to recap, we've seen 2 GIS-heavy workflows in one easy-to-use system, making your workflows accessible and automated. I haven't had to leave the Workflow Manager interface, and yet 3 applications within the ArcGIS system have been used. And it doesn't have to stop there either. You can extend further across the ArcGIS system as well as your own non-spatial systems, allowing you and your organization to work more efficiently. In my case, the tasks that I've shown you this morning are now accessible to everyone in my organization, and I'm ready to take this project and the ship to a national scale. Thank you very much for listening, and now it's back to Mark.
Fantastic job, Aled. We've just seen Aled demonstrate how we can bring together the disparate work across the ArcGIS system, making use of the variety of different apps that we have at our disposal. And of course, those apps are going to be used by users according to their role. And earlier I spoke about how we are simplifying and consolidating many, many capabilities and applications into these 6 user roles. We're wrapping in so much more, including story maps briefings across every user type, access to ArcGIS GeoBIM for those construction workflows, ArcGIS Flight for flying drones and coordinating in that reality mapping space. And then up at the creator level, we've already touched on some of this today. I talked about ArcGIS Image for ArcGIS Online, and we touched on ArcGIS Knowledge for those graph analytics capabilities. There's also Excalibur for imagery exploitation, Mission for situational awareness, and now all creator users have access to ArcGIS Pro Basic. And then going up the levels, there's more capabilities in ArcGIS Pro, including a big extensions bundle up at the Professional Plus level. There really is an awful lot for you to take advantage of here and to get your heads around. So I'd really recommend checking it out on our website. All of the information is there. If you just scroll down, click on that first tile there, and that will take you through to all the new information, including a really helpful matrix which starts to articulate where the changes fall in each role. Okay, so it is an exciting year for us, expanding and simplifying access to ArcGIS for you. And I hope that we've highlighted some of that well this morning, and I look forward to continuing that conversation with many of you throughout the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So we're nearly at the end of our session. I hope you agree, some fantastic demonstrations, hopefully some inspiration to take back to the office and some important information about the changes to our licensing. So as we move to the end of the session, just a couple of final thoughts I'd like to share with you. So if you have enjoyed this morning's session, there's lots more to follow. We've got lots of different sessions planned this afternoon. Your friend to navigate through that is ThinkGIS. I have my copy here. You can find them around the building. The agenda is on the back of ThinkGIS, and there's a map on the inside back cover. One thing I said at the start of the day, it's our biggest ever conference. We've got more people here than ever before, so it will be busy. So please, if there is a particular session you want to get to, please get there early, because unfortunately we will have to close the rooms when they get full. But please enjoy the day. We've also got our partner expo, our tech zone, and our industry zone, where you can meet the Esri UK staff. So again, we'd love to talk to you, find out more about what you're doing, and talk to you about the latest developments in ArcGIS. We also have an area on our 5th floor, which we're calling the research zone, which talks about our academic activities and also about careers in GIS and professional development. So please check that out too. So there is a lot happening. And the final thought, just to take away, is I want to leave you with the idea of, please think about the world you want to see. I do genuinely believe the people in this room have the knowledge, the expertise, and the skills to make a real difference. And the organizations we all work for are hugely influential. We have a genuine opportunity to tackle some of those challenges we face on our planet. So I hope this morning's given you a small amount of inspiration for that and how GIS can help you on that journey. We'd love to see you back here for the closing plenary later this afternoon. But otherwise, please enjoy the day, and thanks very much.